This is yet another MBA G.O.A.T, a podcast featuring conversations with the greatest of all-time MBA alumni from the Naveen Jindal School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas. We are here to celebrate the outcomes of graduate management education and to identify remarkable examples of how the MBA program here at the Jindal School has transformed the lives of our alumni. Now, here's Lisa Shatz, Assistant Dean for the Jindal School's MBA programs. Take it away, Lisa.
Hey, you guys. This is Lisa Shatz, Assistant Dean for MBA programs. And I know you're all used to hearing my predecessor, Monica Powell, say, well, hello there, but I'm not really the well, hello there kind of person. So I'm going with, hey, you guys, and grasping onto my New York roots. So, hey, you guys, I am so excited to introduce our guest today, Tristan Opie. Tristan is a graduate from the Full-Time MBA program, and he is currently an experienced consultant in the Healthcare and Life Sciences group at West Monroe Partners. Welcome, Tristan. Thanks for joining me today for the G.O.A.T podcast. I'm excited to get a chance to chat with you. You graduated, a year and a half ago, something like that? And I think I've seen you a couple times since then, but we haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk for a while. So this is nice for me to reconnect.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Definitely an honor to be on the podcast and excited to chat.
Good. Well, jumping in just for a little bit of background, you are one of our students that was in the Full-Time MBA program. And as I recall, married when you were in the program, but no kids. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
And your marriage made it through the program. So yay.
Yep. Marriage made it to the program. Definitely a positive.
She stuck with you. I was one of those who put my spouse through an MBA program as well. So she will have that in her entire life, the opportunity to remind you that she helped you in that way. So Tristan, you've been out of the program for a year. And let's just start by hearing what your year's been like.
Yeah. So after graduating from the full-time program in December of last year, I went to work for West Monroe Partners as a management consultant and in their healthcare and life sciences practice. So West Monroe Partners is a mid-size consulting firm with basically it serves a wide variety of industries, but specifically healthcare. And one of the main things that we focus on is technology. So everything from technology strategy to assessments, implementations, pretty much anything you can think of. And we do that for every kind of aspect of the healthcare industry. So that was something I was targeting to do pretty much from when I entered into my MBA program. And so it was really great to kind of get and make that jump. But this year, it's been a very interesting year, and especially for the consulting industry. I think in May, we were kind of securing some things up and making sure, that we weren't losing a lot of work and riding out really that wave, as I know everyone was. And during that time, was on various client work and things like that. And in June, kind of got locked into a long-term implementation project, which has been really great. So as far as this year, just been, getting into that first year of consulting, learning the business, and really being involved in a project. And then also, I guess on the side, trying to keep up with all my MBA cohort, fellow alumni and things like that, which has definitely been an interesting dynamic in the pandemic.
And they are all over the country, all over the world, really. So you guys are still tight as can be.
Yeah, still keeping up. Haven't had really any in-person events, but have kind of kept up over text and. I think the occasional Zoom game night and things like that. So very similar to I know what people are probably doing at their companies. So, but yep, still keeping up with everyone.
Well, let's talk about consulting, because you are one of the few students that actually came into the program with consulting background and knowing that you wanted to go that route. And then you joined the consulting immersion program within the full-time MBA. So talk a little bit about kind of your journey through that and the difference of trying to transition from something into consulting as opposed to being in consulting already and just making yourself better or more prepared for the next level of consulting.
Right. So again, was kind of trying to had kind of introductory background in consulting in my job prior to my MBA. And I think one of the biggest things in making that jump was kind of area of consulting and aspect of the industry that I was in before was a pretty niche area, and really was trying to make a broader jump into, I think, a bigger area of healthcare, a bigger area of healthcare consulting. And for me, when I was talking with mentors before the program and trying to make that decision, that was one of the driving forces for kind of facilitating that jump into, I would say, broader consulting and into the position where I'm at now. And the MBA program, I think, was really instrumental in that. Obviously, you have the classes and the coursework involved, but then I also was a part of the consulting immersion program, which was really great. And I don't know, if we want to go into that now, but was really instrumental in not only making, connections and being able to connect with people who really lifelong consultants who know the industry backwards and forwards, but training myself and the other people in that program how to do case interviewing and really how to better prepare for a role in that industry.
So when you were in consulting before, did you use case before you got into the MBA program, or you were just one of the lucky ones that ended up to stumble into consulting without having to go through the case prep process?
It was pretty introductory role. So I stumbled in and was lucky enough to kind of stumble in without that case process. So it was very important that I get that training the second time around, if you will, through the MBA program.
And it's interesting because case interviewing has really, number one, it's not just for consulting anymore. So there are a lot of big companies now doing case, but unlike regular kind of behavioral interviewing, learning how to be a good case interviewer is a challenge. That's not something you do a 2-hour session on and you walk away knowing how to do case interviews. So you obviously learned case interview and how to be a good interviewee. Did it help you to learn how to interview other people in a case format as you're interviewing people to come into your company now?
Yes, for sure. And I guess I will preface that, outside of the consulting program, tons of my fellow cohort members were interviewing for positions and, outside of consulting, and, they were having to get prepped. And I remember they were having to get prepped rather for those case interviews. And I remember our kind of consulting immersion program, training several people kind of on the fly. All right, here's how you try and tackle this. But yes, as far as, learning that, it's been really helpful in interviewing people for the company where I'm at now and thinking through that. And one of the things even within the consulting immersion program was that in addition to getting practice and getting interviewed by the mentors who were current consultants, we were also interviewing and training each other, which was very helpful as well, and provided a really great incubator for, I think, learning very quickly, because you were not only going through the case interviews, but you were learning what it looked like to sit on the other side. So very helpful.
And you had a great group of students that went through that program with you. I seem to remember a couple of those sessions were just really fun. Yes,
they were very fun. And I think everyone once you kind of get over the hump of being intimidated by case interviewing, you can kind of see the road ahead and you can see the challenge, and it does start to get kind of fun. You're just trying to put the puzzle pieces together, trying to figure it out. And once you start to kind of get and put the pieces together and master it, it does start to get fun for everyone. Crazy as that sounds. So
certainly the consulting immersion, I think you were in the second class maybe of consulting immersion. The third class is now just graduating, and we have people in Big Four, as well as we have one student who's going to McKinsey this year. So it's been fun to see that grow and see our students go to such great firms, everything from small boutique firms, Big Four, to the McKinsey type companies. So that's been really fun. So let's back up a little bit to the process where you are making a decision on which MBA program to go to, because as I was reminded this morning, you really were torn. We have some students who come in and they're just like, I know I want UT Dallas, but you had it narrowed down to 2 really good programs. Mm-hmm. And I remember that it took you a lot of thinking. So what was it that made you decide to come to UT Dallas when there was another school that was so close in the running?
Yeah, so taking me back to that time, that was definitely an interesting time. But I think that while there are a lot of factors, I think for me personally, it started to, having talking with family and talking with my wife and what we wanted to do, it did kind of narrow down where my wife was with her job and how we like living in Dallas Fort Worth and how much opportunity there was here for her and what she wanted to do, as well as for myself. I think that was a big factor in it, especially because the other school was outside of Dallas Fort Worth. And on that note, that was probably a big draw and a big factor, was that the UT Dallas MBA program is very well connected and has events regularly throughout the semester that gets you connected and gets you informed on potential career opportunities. And you can do that without having to go travel an hour or however long to go get there. It's right in your backyard. So that was probably a big factor. And then another one was really just value. I mean, UT Dallas is a very highly ranked MBA program that, obviously there's a ton reflected in those rankings, but one of them is value. And for, kind of the scholarship opportunities that were presented, and also just the high academic rigor and the classmates who I know I would probably be going in with. Once it kind of boiled down to it, was kind of a no-brainer for myself and my wife as we were kind of going along and thinking through it. So that's kind of how I arrived at that decision. Even though I know during that time, once I kind of got the acceptance and things like that, there's definitely a lot of questions.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that is a big decision for anyone making that choice. Where you get your MBA kind of, sets the foundation for everything else you'll do after that. And there's a lot of good programs. So we really try to push, what's the right program for you. But I do, I go to these big conferences and I talk to people who have my job in different places, and some of them are just in the middle of nowhere. And I always am grateful that I get to, run a program that's in the middle of a metroplex like Dallas Fort Worth, that never mind has, so many headquarters and so many opportunities, but it's growing. I mean, there's so many new companies moving here all the time, and it's become a real hub for almost, all industries, including healthcare, and obviously oil and gas and real estate. And so there's just so many industries, and they just keep coming. Yep. So it's nice to be in a growing place, and it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and call a Fortune 500 company and say, we've got MBA events coming up. Can you be part of it? And they want to engage with us. So that is definitely an advantage that we have.
Yeah.
I moved here as well from a big, from East Coast, and that was 25 years ago. And I wouldn't do it if I had it to do over, I would not do it any differently. I'm all Texas.
Yeah, I really don't think that can be understated. I mean, really, there's a lot of emphasis there with that, because it's not just that we're in a big city. We're in a big city, and we're in a state that has a lot going on. And I mean, I'll speak from the healthcare perspective. I had to choose which networking events, both internal and external, like internal to the program and external, to go to on a weekly basis, because there was so much opportunity. And I knew that I know my cohort members were making similar decisions. Is that, hey, I got to really pick from the top ones to go to and try and figure out what's most beneficial for me. And that's just kind of speaks to how much with where UT Dallas sits, and also who UT Dallas is connected with. So definitely a lot of opportunity there. I think that's a big, big factor.
Yeah. And of course, every student is only going to be as successful as the effort they put in. So you can go to the best MBA program in the world, and if you're not engaged and you're not doing the right things and you're not developing yourself and you're not thinking broadly, then it's not going to matter. But in your case, you were, and I know you're humble, so I'll just say it, you had multiple offers when you got out. You did a lot of things right during the program, but when you got out, you had multiple companies that were making offers. And so that is where students who are successful want to be. So what is it that you think you did during the program that made you so successful when you were actually looking for a role?
Yeah, I think one of the things probably is kind of what went back to your early question, or earlier comment, which is just on family. And I think level setting with your family, the commitment that you're making to the program, because the amount you get out of the program is how much you put in. And if you are able to, and if your family is understanding and can really, work around and allow you to be able to give yourself to that program for a year and a half, I think that was one of the things that for me helped me to be, put me in a good place, because my wife was understanding. There were those late nights, there were those nights when I wasn't, home or things like that. And it was just kind of understood, at least for this period of our lives, I think the other thing too that kind of helped me to be in that place where I was in good position coming out was diving into the networking emphasis that was placed in the program. MBA programs, and specifically the UT Dallas MBA program, is a great incubator for practicing and learning networking, which for me is just I've found to be one of the biggest takeaways from the program, a lifelong skill. And not what can I get from other people, but how can I mutually benefit? How can we provide mutual benefit to each other? And really from within the UT Dallas program, that introductory welcome week or 2 weeks program where you're just kind of in depth going in and getting that introductory kind of business training, that's an emphasis from day one. And I think in my mind, how I thought through it was that if 1 or 2 weeks went by and I hadn't called someone or I hadn't gone to a networking event, it was kind of time for me to go check back my contact list, see who I needed to try and keep reaching out to, and just always make sure I was talking to someone. Networking is a very nebulous process, but to try and put some structure around it, like I did, I think was something that helped me, because that was ultimately how I got the position that I am at now. Is I was able to kind of talk with multiple people and actually get referred by that person to the position where I was at.
This episode is brought to you by the UT Dallas MBA program, top ranked nationally and in Texas. The UT Dallas MBA combines a robust core with 13 concentrations. You have an option to add a second master's degree, and your choices for that include 5 STEM-designated programs. The MBA program has full-time, part-time, online, and other formats. They give you flexibility to fit your MBA education into your busy schedule. The skills and training you will receive are what top employers are looking for. For more information, visit us online at jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.
So Tristan, one of the things I think I remember you doing during the program was a case competition. Am I remembering right?
Yes.
That's a really good example of putting yourself out there, because, you have to do all the networking and all that kind of stuff, but that's a little bit more comfortable. When you sign up for a case competition, that is really putting yourself in the hot seat. So talk a little bit about what that experience was like. Yeah.
So one of the main ones that I did was through a local, pretty active healthcare organization. They put out a healthcare case competition. I did that with some of my MBA cohorts, and you're right. You're definitely putting yourself out there. But it really is a great opportunity to learn. And I think it has a lot of, I don't think this is necessarily the intent, but it has a lot of application to consulting. You're given a problem where you have very little detail and very little information, and you need to ask the right questions, gain all the right information from what's available, and then go and present that in the best way that you can, and really, really try and sell it to, in this case, it was the local healthcare leaders who we were kind of pitching to, and then see how it goes. And I think, especially because when you're doing these case competitions in the MBA program, you're doing it alongside your coursework, you're doing it alongside the consulting immersion program. It adds kind of that extra level of stress, but also that extra level of kind of coming together, because you're working with this team after hours. You're all kind of sweating through it, trying to get this out, and then you have to go and really just put your best foot forward. And so I think there's those case competitions. I know people have done, I guess that's pretty much a standard of the MBA program. Most people at least do one, if not multiple, during their time when they're in the program. So those are great opportunities.
Yeah. And I think, it's one thing to do a project for class and, to get an A and feel like you did really well, but to stand in front of everyone and get, that prize for being first or second, and have those executives who are judging you watching that. I know that's such a thrill for our students.
Yes, it definitely is. And that's the thing, is you can't fake it, because these people are out there doing the very thing that you're trying to pitch to them about. And so you really got to come prepared. And, so yeah, those are case competitions are great opportunities.
Good. So let's talk about just some of your recollection about just fun in general. If you look back on your time in the MBA program, I know you can remember lots of stress and lots of studying and up late nights. But if you think about like a moment or a story that kind of exemplified the growth or the fun or the camaraderie of the program, do you have something that comes to mind?
Yeah, there isn't actually one particular thing that comes to mind, but more just kind of the general atmosphere that we had, and with our MBA cohort. You get to know people so well, and one of the cool things about, I think, the UT Dallas MBA program is because they have it's a small cohort size. We all physically fit within one room, and so that room for the first semester, and even the semesters after that, is where you do almost all your classes. And so everyone's coming in and going, and there's just so much opportunity for hanging out. That's why I say, it's hard to pin just one story, because there's just countless images I can think of just funny conversations and things that went on, because we're all just in that room. We're staying up way too late, talking, having a great time. And through that, also getting to know and benefit and learn from one another. So hard hard to narrow down just one, and one that would maybe be appropriate for an MBA podcast. But yeah, I think it's a unique layout with how the UT Dallas program is set up.
Isn't it funny too, how people get attached to that room? Because I can't tell you how many times we had after the first year, the second years move to the second year room, and the new class comes in and sits in that first class year room. And during lead camp, which is the 2-week orientation you were talking about, we have lots of second years and alums coming in to talk to the new class. And so you'll remember that there was just a flow of people coming in to teach or to talk about their experience or to try and start putting that learning on the students. And I bet 80% of the time that a second year student comes in to talk to the first years, the first thing they say is, "That was my chair," or, "I can't believe you guys took our room." And it's just interesting how attached a class can be to a physical room, even though the second year class looks exactly the same.
Yep. I agree. I mean, there's just so much that goes on and so many late night conversations and fun things like that. So there definitely is a lot of attachment. Was there any one faculty member that really made a difference for you or exemplified what the faculty at UT Dallas are like? Yeah, man. And truly, I'm not just saying that there were a lot. But if I was just going to kind of pick one, I think for me, Dr. Hicks, who was the organizational behavior professor, really was a great example of kind of how UT Dallas, an exemplification of UT Dallas professors. He's always very willing to meet with us and to invest with us or invest time with us. The other thing too is that he was also exceptionally accomplished as a professional. It was not something that was necessarily that he put out there, but in kind of doing some digging or just hearing here and there. I mean, very accomplished individual, and it showed in the coursework that he put forward. And organizational behavior, not my favorite class. If I were to, especially in undergrad, as a business student, or coming out in my grad program, one of my favorite classes, and I think one of the most essential classes. So again, there's so many great professors at UT Dallas, and really just very impressed overall with the academic rigor and what people bring to the table, both from business experience and academic experience. But that's just one example for me.
It's interesting about taking that class that just kind of surprises you. And you always think of undergrad as the place that you're supposed to kind of take all these different things and you're going to just fall into the thing that you love. And, I don't know about you, but my undergrad, I did not fall into the thing I love. I didn't know any more about what I wanted to do when I got out than when I got in. And graduate school, you tend to think it's so narrow, it's all business, that you have already made your choice. And yet when I got my MBA, I certainly had no idea, but I took an operations class. It was our first, core operations class. And man, I would never thought in a million years that operations would have been my thing. But by the end of that class, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I think an MBA is so much broader than people think. So, there's no decision to be made. I'm getting into business. But with all the different areas, the breadth of an MBA, where you're doing accounting and finance and marketing and operations and statistics and all these different things, and that's before you even get to your electives, I think people are sometimes surprised by how much they fall into that thing that they love.
Yep. I would agree. There's so many examples I can think of people in the program having that same exact thought of, I was not a numbers person, or I was not I wasn't an organizational behavior tech person. And here I am enjoying this class more than I thought I was going to enjoy all the classes I thought when I was coming in the program that looked interesting. So I agree to that.
Yeah. If I had $1 for every student that came in and said, I've never even taken a quantitative class,
Yep.
I'm a musician, or I'm this, or I'm that, and I'm really worried about it. And then wouldn't you know, they're the ones that jump into those data analytics classes or those really heavily quantitative classes and just blow everybody away. There are surprises down the road, even when you've already picked your graduate degree. So let's talk about your giving back. You've been out for only a year, but there's multiple occasions you've already come back and talked with incoming students. I think you were at an info session recently. I think the story, the way I heard it, is Andrea took a little bit to figure out who you were because you left clean shaven and you came back fully bearded.
Yep.
And it took her a minute. But talk a little bit about just kind of your relationship with UT Dallas and the MBA program specifically now that you're out.
So I think most students who go through the MBA program really, because of how much alumni are pouring in and how much that enriches their experience, really are very aware of, the impact and wanting really to give back once they go out, because they know that as they build the program and as they go and give back, that, the alumni network's going to grow and it's overall going to be a win-win for everyone. For me, as far as that's concerned, I just appreciated the program so much and knew that the people who came and talked, or even were just willing to, have that 30-minute phone call about consulting or about healthcare, those people were some of the biggest game changers. And that is a very active part. I don't think anyone in our program went through the program without contacting an alumni or without having a conversation. And alumni are always willing to talk and speak. So I know since I've been out, I think I did that info session. You're right. And then I've also just had random conversations with people, mainly centered on, are you interested in healthcare? Are you interested in healthcare consulting? How can we tell your story and what would that look like if you're wanting to make that jump? So that's kind of been my perspective on as an alumni. And I think that's a lot of people's perspective as an alumni coming out of the program.
So Tristan, given that you came into the program and you're really torn between multiple MBA programs, and I'm a real believer that there isn't one MBA program out there that's right for everyone. So for a student who's starting to look at MBA programs, what would your advice be on what exactly to look for? Because it's really easy to just say, UT Dallas is ranked higher than the other schools in Dallas, so I'm going to pick that, or they have the program I want. But we know there's a lot more to that decision. So what advice would you give a student who is starting to look at MBA programs and consider ours as one of them?
When you're in that kind of discovery phase and looking through MBA programs, would definitely advise talking with as many people as possible to get as many different perspectives. That includes mentors, people who, with the career path you want to take, talking to those people saying, hey, how is this MBA really going to help me? And specifically the school, which one, fits right for what I want to do. I know that's something that I did a little bit, but I would always highly recommend that, just having those additional points of feedback. But the other thing, when you're actually starting to get into making the decision process, I think discerning from rankings is kind of tough. But one of the things I would look at, especially in today's tough job market, is making sure that your MBA program is a really great value. You can pay, a lot of money. And I know that it's, long story short, you can pay a lot of money and go to certain schools, but not necessarily get that ROI. And I know most people who come to UT Dallas have a really great ROI on their program and their experience. And really, it's just a really great, bang for your buck, if you will. And it's right up there with all the other programs in the country. So really focusing in on, am I actually going to get my return out of this year and a half of my time that I'm going to give? Another thing to keep in mind is the fact that the UT Dallas MBA program is a year and a half as opposed to 2 full years. Just kind of gives you a head start on other people, in addition to the fact that you do have the opportunity to add on kind of additional, degrees and things like that to your MBA by having that extra semester. And then lastly, I think, it's really just trying to get to know the program staff, the MBA faculty, if you possibly can, just to get a flavor for, what type of people am I going to be interacting with? Is this really the type of fit? Just like you'd look for in a job, is this really for me? And that can be tough. Obviously the UT Dallas program, people are very willing to talk with you and have those conversations, but just trying to, in making that decision, talk to and get as best possible understanding as you can for what the program is going to be and how you fit into that. So there's a ton of things to think about when you're going into it to decide in that initial process, but that's a couple of things I would take into account.
Okay, Tristan. So I have a couple questions for you, and I'm going to ask them quickly, and you need to just say the first thing to come to mind. You ready?
Okay, sounds good. Ready.
Okay. In the UT Dallas MBA program, how many cups of coffee did you drink?
Oh, way too many. 1,500 probably. If you had to put a number to it.
What was your favorite class?
Global strategy with Hazard and Redlinger.
What did you do for a break?
Went mountain biking.
Mountain biking? We're in Dallas. It's flat.
I know. There's some good spots. So I'd say it's more trail biking. So I should preface that. But yep.
Okay. Who did you sit with next to the most?
Jeffrey Golden.
How many high fives?
Oh, countless.
How many hugs?
Not that many.
Describe your faculty in 3 words.
Experienced, intentional, hate that word, but it's a good word. And I'm blanking, can't do it, but I'll do experienced and intentional.
And if you could do one thing again that you did in the MBA program, you could relive one event or one class or one moment, what would it be?
Going to the MBA conference with everyone during my second year. So that was a blast.
Awesome. Hey, that's a good one to we repeat when we're trying to convince the next class to go to the MBA conferences that you actually said that was your favorite moment.
Yep. So much fun.
Well, thank you so much, Tristan. It was good catching up with you. We haven't talked for a while. We've got to get together as the next semester of events come up. And we're looking forward to having you back, both in the spring semester and then, of course, when Lead Camp starts again and we do the whole thing over again in August.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to catch up, Lisa. And thanks for having me on. Definitely an honor to be on the podcast.
Thanks.
We are so glad you could join us today and hear about the journey of yet another MBA GOAT. For me, my MBA was truly transitional, as it is for so many of our students. If you're wondering where an MBA can take you, reach out to us and let's talk about you. Email us at mba@utdallas.edu and feel free to ask for me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of yet another MBA GOAT podcast. Join us online at mba.goat.com to find episode notes, links, and more. Be sure to subscribe to yet another MBA GOAT podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review. That will help spread the word about the podcast and the Jindal School's MBA programs. To learn more about the Jindal School's MBA programs, go to jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.